I was seeing your notes, and I was surprised that you made it through, and I was teasing Chris with "Put, put, put goes little red" jokes. And Chris was not happy about it.
Are you, like, bringing this up so that it's on the record?
So that's why you two were fighting when I got here. Because you never actually told me why you were all snippy when I got here.
Really good job, Eddie,
it's such a cute book.
Not fighting in front of the kids. The kids being the rest of the Anidorks.
In 1996, Scholastic began publishing Animorphs. Over the next 6 years, Catherine Applegate and her husband, Michael Grant, under the pseudonym K.A. Applegate, produced 54 main series books, several spin-offs, and inspired a TV series, graphic novels, and a cult following. We can't tell you where we live. We can't even tell you our last names. But we can tell you our thoughts and feelings on this series, book by book. I'm Miranda.
I'm Eddie.
And I'm Chris.
And we are the Anidorks. These may be kids' books, but we discuss dark themes and mature content. There may also be some explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
So we're landing this J.J. Abrams plane down onto the Taxxon
No, it's crashing because it's
planet.
Flight 815.
Crash it. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Oceanic 815.
And the first thing that they notice while they're landing is that the spaceport is very complex and has a vast array of ship cradles in different sizes, which to me is like I understand that the Yeerks are slowly taking over everything, but at the same time, like, where are you going to get service like that on an Andalite port?
It's very true.
Like, you show up to an Andalite port and they're like, did you bring your adapter? And it's like, no, I didn't bring my weird-ass, like, grass tree adapter thing that you make me bring everywhere. It's like, no, these guys at least have parking that fits my particular...
Right, it's not all smart car parking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They see all this orange-red dirt, no grass, not a single blade of grass.
God, I hate grass.
And worst of all, in this swarm hive of villainy, are the maglev trains running through.
It is easy to get around.
We were promised our entire lives. They were like, we're going to make a maglev New York to DC to LA line, and you'll be able to get there in 4 hours, and it'll be so good for the planet.
Yeah. And this is the technology they brought to us in the future that the Elamists showed us.
And they build to it like it is the most horrifying thing. Like, we heard about how you can smell living hearts everywhere, right? The blood, the poison sky, and the clouds part to emerge, to reveal.
And there it is, the maglev.
Light rail.
He's like minutes away from saying, we all know that trains are scary, but at least those steam engines, you can hear them coming.
Mm-hmm. It feels strongly associated with the Taxxons, but it can't be a Taxxon technology, right?
Right.
Like, I feel like we're always told that the Taxxons are commuting and they love going places. But it's not a Taxxon technology, because I think we'll see later where Taxxons come from more naturally, right? I mean, they love getting places.
Absolutely, yeah. And they love being in between two places and having a sense of direction. But as we're about to see, they do not know how to navigate these maglevs particularly well, or at the very least, these safety railings.
What do you mean? You think one of them's going to slip and fall?
Oh, well,
and maybe, like, hit the ground like a bag of goo?
Yeah.
And die immediately, and nobody does anything.
Oh, but we should, before we get there.
People do something.
Yeah, they get excited about it. We took an open elevator from the cradle down to the ground. As we descended, I counted 2 ships landing and 1 taking off. The maglev trains zipped back and forth in the dizzying array of tracks. On the ground, big tracked vehicles moved heavier loads. Everywhere were Taxxons. Okay, they're not characterized at all here. Swaggering Hork Bajir. Whoa! I feel like I've seen one Hork Bajir swagger, and it was on the cover of a book we haven't read yet. And big...
But he was standing next to an Andalite, so maybe it's just some sort of natural connection.
Yeah.
And busy clumsy Gedds.
Yeah.
Which, frankly, I don't understand the clumsy. Like, because what we're talking about here is pandas. Like, the Gedds
they
are
were
just
more
also
ape-like.
getting... That's what I thought, but guess what? Apes aren't that fucking clumsy. Like, they're oafish,
No, but-
like a gorilla maybe is, like, bulky, but it's not clumsy.
Gedd specifically were described as having like really bad eyesight and shit. Like they just don't see
get
very well. In that book, he's like half blind Gedd.
Yeah.
They
I guess
bumped
so.
into
I just think
things.
it's
They're just not very coordinated.
Why are they still
Which
using
is not
that?
true of apes on Earth. You are correct.
Yeah.
It is-
So I'm thinking maybe it's more like a panda. I think it's more like if you put a panda in a nuclear reactor, not in the reactor, but in the control center for the reactor, and was like, okay, pull these levers. The control panel is not designed for panda. As cute as this is, panda shouldn't be in there.
Do you think he looked like that bear that everybody accused China of being a man in a bear suit?
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
I don't get
what
it.
Were you gonna say?
I feel like Taxxons should be the entry level controller for a baby Yeerk. But what we'll learn in a little bit is that Gedds actually are. You start with a Gedd before you
Yes.
move up to a Taxxon, and that seems wrong to me. Like,
Well, the Gedd were first.
yeah.
And it could be that, I mean, we will see here, because let's move a little ahead just for a brief moment. That Taxxon that fell and died and squished and gooed.
What?
All the other Taxxons, despite having Yeerks in their head, are going to eat that guy.
Yeah, yeah.
The Yeerks can't control.
It's like when everybody decides to run the red light.
Yeah.
It's like it
And
really
you're
doesn't
like,
matter.
oh, we're all dead. Like,
How do we...
but they can't even really control the hunger of the Taxxon, even when they are promoted to
Yeah,
Taxxon level.
that's a good point.
So the Gedds are probably easier to control, would be my guess. And also, since the Gedds and Taxxons, or not the Gedds and Taxxons, excuse me, the Gedds and Yeerks are from the same planet, they could be, like, there could be a level of, not symbiosis, but, like, the Yeerks could have evolved
It's like more comfortable.
specifically for the Gedds, you know what I mean?
Well, and I think that one of the interesting things here is like, what is the environment for these creatures? Like, I don't know, maybe Gedds are just out of place. I don't know, if you're using a Taxxon on the Taxxon planet, it's probably just way easier than if you're...
Yeah. Also, I feel like Taxxon, we know they're really good with wrenches. They're they're good with pressing buttons. The Hork Bajir are more combat oriented. The Gedd are probably just like general laborers, which I feel like is how they want humans too.
Well, humans, because there's so many of us.
Yeah.
That seems to be, they're like, we don't care that much about developing them for a specific skill. We just care that there's 7 billion of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I do want to note too that when the Taxxon falls, what does the Taxxon, I think we each have to take a go at this. The Taxxon,
Okay.
when it falls,
Suddenly.
yeah. Surniwa! That's not as... Yeah, that's pretty good. And when it falls, Elfangor narrates, more of them, all rushing, came toward their fallen friend. They're friends. At least to Elfangor's eyes.
That's a really good point. I missed that.
Not comrade,
A friend.
Yeah.
a friend.
A friend.
You've
Colleague.
got a friend.
Have you
me.
seen Betty lately? No, I haven't. Oh, I'm sorry, I have. I ate her. She's dead.
Along with everyone else. Everyone was doing it.
Oh, she was so lovely
So-
though, and best cobbler on the coast. It's
Oh, damn it. I want to do that whole joke again, but her name is Sarah, and at the end someone goes, well, nobody doesn't like Sarah Lee. Because I tried to do that with Betty Crocker. But I was like, no shit, that's the Sarah Lee slogan.
nicely done. Damn.
So this friend falls, and everyone wants to take a bite. Even Elfangor. He's hungry.
Yeah.
He's been hungry. Now he's hungry for this very specific thing. And he fights it way too much. I think he should have
Can't
just given-
resist.
Yeah.
He says, he's going, he's there. He's like, my compound eyes are looking at it, and I plunge downward, mouth open, teeth gnashing, ready to... No!
Yeah.
And he manages to pull back. And so he has to just run as far as he can. And luckily, the other Taxxons all want to eat Betty too. So they all just push him out of the way. And he's like, oh, thank God. Like,
And it's not dead. I realized, I thought it was
no, it's
dead.
dying.
It's dying. It's fevered beating of its heart. Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
it's still going on.
Well, it's the only humane thing to do. I mean, Betty was suffering a minute ago.
It's true.
And
What are you going to do, stick them in a closet in a cargo hold? No.
In this scuffle, in this debacle,
Kerfluffle.
this fracas, if you will, we've
Praxis of Fraxis.
We've lost Arbron and Alaran, and there's nothing we can do, and there's no way to look for them.
But certainly they didn't munch, right? They definitely
Yes.
didn't
No.
munch.
Right?
Yeah.
No.
They probably
Doesn't even-
Alarin probably actually did launch, to be quite honest.
But did he crunch?
Only if others were doing it.
Yeah.
Then don't worry, you guys, because I know this book is very scary, and we just lost track of our two friends who are in Taxxon morph. But it's okay. We're about to make a new friend, and that new friend is a Hork Bajir who arrests us like Javert
Very quickly.
in Les Mis.
Yeah.
He calls 6 or 7 of them around to surround him.
Are they swaggering? I think they're swaggering.
I think they started out, they swaggered over.
Oh yeah,
And they had Dracon beams. And Subvisor 7, he introduces himself.
Now, can we foreshadow who this is, Miranda, by using a certain voice, even though it's a Hork Bajir right now?
Welcome to the Taxxon homeworld. I'm Subvisor 7. That's what
Can you do it but pointier? Because it's a Hork Bajir talking.
You interest me. Yes, indeed. I'm making little hand motions.
Yeah, the hand motions really help. Yeah, slice.
I'm very
slice.
interested in any Taxxon who will not eat fresh meat. I hit my mic.
You can hear the dainty paw. It's not here yet, but it's still dainty.
And if Subvisor 7 is casting right now, like the theater through line, like Subvisor 7 is like walking around, it's like, oh my god, a Taxxon that won't eat.
Yeah.
This is my Hamlet.
Yeah.
This is my this is it.
You know, I'm not saying anything about it's bad about just playing Subvisor 7. You know, there's no small roles, but you know, today Subvisor 7, tomorrow maybe swing for Visor 3.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
morphing has occurred, and with morphing comes a cost, and we get morphing described to us in 2 hours. He says hours, he doesn't explain that it's 2 Earth hours, he just says 2 hours in morph, and you'll become a Nothlet. And he's like, this is why I was so nervous. They caught me as a Taxxon, and they were interrogating me, but they still didn't necessarily know I was an Andalite. And then we get a little rundown on Yeerk hierarchy and how the Yeerk government works, and we get a Council of 13 drop. I watched him as well as I could with my Taxxon eyes. You know, he's now trapped looking at Subvisor 7.
On a maglev train.
On a maglev train.
That's the thing.
He's
They're doing
got
this
a
on
ticket
public
to
transit.
ride.
To ride.
A Subvisor is a high rank. I remembered that from the basic training classes where they taught us about the Yeerk foe, who we've been fighting for 5 long years. Now, at the top of the Yeerk Empire is the
For
Council
20 long minutes.
is the Council of 13. One of those 13 is the Emperor, but no one knows which one. It's a closely guarded
you're
secret.
joking.
The
You're
Yeerk Sphere
joking.
assassination.
How did I miss that? And we read this 3 times.
It's so fun.
That's so brilliant. That's amazing.
Just below the Council
That's-
of 13 are the Visors. They are the generals of the Yeerk military. They are numbered according to their power and importance. Visor 1 would be the most powerful, on down through Visor 40 or so. Very specific. A Subvisor is like a colonel, very powerful, especially if he has a low number, like 7. But not a Visor yet.
So, what I need to be true is that when you're on the Council of 13, you're so high up that you're not actually in a morph. You're just a slug on a throne. But I feel like
I'm telling you, we said that goblets. They're in
Yes.
little chalices.
Oh,
There's-
yes.
Yes,
and you're
speaking of
wearing a
inside.
cloak.
Yes. But there was also the vision after the fugue in book 6. We still don't know
what?
what that is. And I'm wondering...
The Eye of Sauron.
Oh, no, I just
Yes.
wanted you to go, the fugue!
Sorry.
Do you think assassination in this case is squashing? It's better if the Yeerks are trying to kill each other, right? That's what they mean, right? Like they...
I think they're very
Oh, for
power
sure.
hungry. And I mean, with what we've seen between
For
Visor 3 and
sure.
Visor 1, I think the Council of 13, I'm not sure any of them know who the Emperor is. I think
there
the
might
big
not actually-
reveal
there
might
might not
be
be an
that
emperor.
there is no
Yeah.
Kaiser Soze.
man.
Yeah, exactly, right. And they're like, but I think that that's exactly what this means. Like, don't get it twisted. They're not afraid of like, an Andalite with a sniper rifle on the grassy knoll or whatever. They're afraid of Yeerk intrigue. Like, this is Kremlin 101.
Poisoning each other's goblets.
Kremlin, the board game. Sorry, I'm not making a judgmental statement. There's an Avalon Hills board game that we've been playing a lot of lately called Kremlin.
It's very
got
good.
rebooted in 2013. Yeah.
Subvisor 7 suspects that this Taxxon that we know as Elfangor is an Andalite in morph. And Elfangor is going to try to...
I'm sorry, did you say an Andalite in jorts?
In morph. No, that is from our Survivor game that we had an Andalite in jorts.
But he may be trying to trick it.
Yes.
That's what Elfangor thinks. He's like, maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he wants it to be because that would be like a big get.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know that. He's like, he could be trying to trick me into being like, into thought speaking to him or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we get this drop of Gallard.
Oh, yeah, this is so big.
Not Galar, the Pokemon region, but Gallard, which is
the universal language for commerce.
It's like standard or common.
Yes, it's common, right? Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool that exists.
It is. It also, again, it's like, I don't know what to say other than it seems like the Yeerks are fitting into their, like, yeah, they're taking over, but it's like, I don't know, maybe it's just, I don't know, man. I'm just saying, maybe the Yeerks aren't, they're inclusive. They speak, it's like,
He says it was the language many races had learned back when the galaxy was at peace.
Yeah. It's a peaceful language in the same way the Yeerks just want peace for all Yeerk kind.
Mm-hmm.
And so Elfangor tries to respond with his Taxxon mouth, and he just sort of makes some Taxxon noises. And
adorably.
Subvisor 7 is like, dude, if you're a controller, you'll speak Gallard. So
it's interesting that
what
it
the
says
fuck?
snake speak, and Taxxons aren't even that snake-like.
No, they got legs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they didn't get the version of the Bible where they find out that he took the legs off the snake.
Oh, and put him on the Taxxon.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a great chapter of the Bible.
So he just doesn't say anything. Elfangor's like, I don't know if speaking Gallard will prove him right, prove him wrong. I don't know what to do. So he just doesn't say anything. And the Subvisor tells us, he's like really haughty. He's like, oh, so you want to resist me? I need the entertainment. Ha, ha, ha. Mm-hmm. But then he mentions a group of rebels. Those mountain Taxxons who refused to join the Empire.
Best lore drop yet in the series.
Lore drop ever. It's like, it's just...
I read it and I went, excuse me? Tell me more about these mountain Taxxons. Like,
Elfangor's like, whoa. It's been pitched to me that the Taxxons are like a total, like, hive mind, totally sold for the Yeerks. They didn't even try to resist. So, like, this would be big news back at home that there's Taxxons resisting. Like, there's a rebel alliance.
Yeah, this is a big deal. It complicates everything about their understanding of Taxxons, and also it doesn't seem to click in straight away.
It's clearly a hint that Taxxon Chronicles will be coming, right? Like,
yes. The Wiggly Boys.
Wiggly Boy.
It also builds on the idea that we started last chapter largely with Alarin being like, what, you think that, like, Andalites don't kill prisoners? And he's like, yes, that's what they taught me. And now he's here. And it's like, what, you thought that Taxxons were all going with the Yeerks by choice? And it's like, yes, that's what they taught me.
Yeah, no, I guess, like, one of the things about reading these books this way is we're reading them very slowly. I think if we were all adults who just wanted to read the whole series, we could knock them out. And,
for sure.
Even I could knock it out in, like, 3 or 4 months.
Oh,
like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But reading it and being along for the ride, we've been living in the Andalite shit.
Yeah.
For like a year now, where they just never stop being elitist scumbags.
And Alarin's like, at least I have the fucking balls to admit that I'm doing it.
Yeah, he's a monster of their own creation. Like, yeah. I like that the books kind of, like, I feel like K.A. Applegate gets to not disguise, but, like, conceal the fact that she didn't know, that she's building out the world as she's going. behind the fact that Andalites are our main source of information. Like, that's who
And it's propaganda.
Yes, yeah, and it's propaganda, exactly. And Elfangor's kind of peeking beyond that. Like, he's like, wait, maybe I wasn't told the truth about everything. Or maybe I was fed a certain narrative.
And it's actually, this is a really, I think, artful and pretty subtle way to introduce the idea to kids that people you trust might be lying to you about important things.
I mean, this is the subtle version of that. The not subtle version
is the rest of the books.
Where it's like,
everyone is Yeerks.
Yeah.
Did it ever occur to you that the cops are controllers? So, we're riding this maglev train with Elfangor and Taxxon Morph.
Along with Subvisor Julia Child 7.
And, like, 5 or 6 Hork Bajir. Other Hork Bajir who are, like, just there to be threatening.
I'm thinking that they're part of the Subvisor's posse.
Absolutely.
Like, it's like they're all probably trying to be models and or actors.
You think this is like a Zoolander situation?
Yes!
Are they gonna have a gasoline fight?
They're gonna have a gasoline fight at some point, yeah.
We see some cute taxons wiggling in and out of holes.
Coming out of holes.
They're pulsating
little
worm.
blast holes.
Oh, I thought it said worm bodies. Worm bodies.
No,
would
worm
slither
body.
and wallow into the mound.
Oh, so cute the way they wallow.
We're reminded that Elfangor's trying to get to the time matrix. He doesn't know where Alarin and Arbron are. He's worrying about the Lauren and Chapman, whether they've been taken by the Yeerks, right? And then the Subvisor 7, he leans in and he suggests that he has a Hork Bajir body right now, which is fine. But if he could have an Andalite body, if that was a possibility, maybe they could work something out here.
Right, like maybe I don't kill you.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, like...
Because what he's threatening to do to him is toss him into a whole big, like, hive, essentially, of Taxxon controllers. And they're going to toss him in, and he's a rebel, and he's going to go enjoy, and they're going to just eat him. They're just going to eat him.
And, I mean, even if you're not a rebel, if you fall from a great height, that's that tender meat.
That's very true.
So that's like, yeah...
So the Subvisor's like, these are our options, right? Yeah. Okay, so we can feed you to my friends.
And as Julia Childs is a brilliant chef, so is Subvisor 3 and knows that the proper way to prepare a Taxxon is to drop it from a
That's right. That's the only way to tenderize it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because you get that atmosphere
and
of it.
There has never been an Andalite controller. So Elfangor's really horrified by this idea. He feels a wave of revulsion that seemed to grow out of some deep insight, as if I had caught a glimpse of the future. I wasn't a mystic. I was in the military, but still I felt a weird, unsettling sensation. Do we think this is a thing?
I think this is Elemist interference? Or do you think he's just tripping out?
I was more curious about what this mystic thing was, if that's actually a type of people in with
because he refers to people like this, and we'll get later on a little more talk about things that are mythical and mystic, and what is and isn't, and how true we think things are. But just the knowledge that there are Andalite mystics, it's sort of like when he threw out that there were Estrenes, there were professional morphers, essentially. And I'm like, you have not described your culture in any way that, like, but that was Axe. And Axe was born in a time of war. He was born because of the war.
Yeah.
So he may have grown up in a fully militarized culture, but Elfangor may have not.
Yeah. It also just makes me wonder if there are tracks through the Andalite world. Like, Elfangor and Axe were always going to grow up to be military.
Because, like, I think his dad was in the military, and, like,
Yeah, if there's Andalites that they don't even give the time of day to, who never are growing up to be warriors, it just doesn't pop up on their radar.
Well, they definitely also have, like, scientists and stuff, too, that aren't necessarily warriors. So
but do you think there are Andalites like us that are podcasters?
Absolutely. Thought Speak Radio.
Yeah. In that mystic wave of revulsion, he also becomes convinced. In staring into the Subvisor's greedy and murderous eyes, it's like he could see him clearly at first, or for the first time, and he says, as if the veil of time was lifted. Feels like that has to be... That's such a, like... Doesn't that feel like a prickle?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't it feel like a literary phrase that's completely not in line with anything else?
Yeah.
And must have something to do with the time
Because
matrix?
he says
Yeah.
then, and I knew then I would not die. He's like, and I
Right.
just know.
Well,
So the causality of it, it's like he knows that he's going to make it
Yeah.
through this thing. And so there's something up here. There's something fourth.
Well, I think
dimensional
part
going
of that is this is something you can do when you're writing a prologue because we know how things are going to turn out
Very
in
true.
some way.
Very true.
So that's something they can play with here. But it does kind of feel like Elfangor and Visser 3 are falling in love here. Like their fates are becoming intertwined.
Yes.
It's just a person you know is going to be in your life for a long time.
Yeah.
Someone from your caress. Yeah. It's but I do think like as if the veil of time was lifted is remarkably, it just sort of leaps out as like, what are you trying to do here?
Yeah.
And
It's
this
cool.
is when Elfangor takes the reins, which is a weird thing to say about Andalites because they're almost horses. But yeah, he decides to introduce himself to Subvisor 7. He says, hi, we're going to be seeing a lot more of each other. Our mute cute is ending.
Yeah.
But I would like you to know my name and maybe you look me up. Maybe you call me maybe.
And then he stops the car and listen to this. The maglev train stopped smoothly. How nice is that? They work so efficiently.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I'm
Not in
so
Philly,
glad
not
you
in New
brought
York.
that up.
No.
Not in Philly. Well, no, because we're not allowed to have nice
Yeah.
things. And they slow down the train, open the door, and he's like, you're not taking my deal. You're not going to let me crawl in your little slippy slidey ear. And he's like, no. And then he's like, all right, whatever, push, eat. And suddenly we have a falling Taxxon to his doom. The Hork Bajir on the train rush him out the door, and he's plummeting towards the earth.
Yeah.
And that's how the book
Well,
ends.
I do want to...
That's how the series
I want to
ends.
stop. We don't have to go into this because we brought it up earlier.
No,
But
it's okay.
the Subvisor does say, see them? Taxxons, not Yeerks. No, these are Taxxons in their natural state. Unimproved,
not
you might
Yeerks.
say.
Oh,
As
I
savage
thought
and
that-
bloodthirsty as any
was wrong.
creature in the galaxy.
Good catch.
And I just
Good
like
catch.
this is a nice little peek into how they think of controllers. He says these are unimproved Taxxons.
Unimproved.
Yeah.
So yeah, then they chuck him out the train.
Yeah.
He splats.
He
it's more of a
doesn't
womp.
splat.
He
It's a womp.
He demorphs.
Well, but there is some
so-
exploding,
He
right?
bursts
Like he bursts.
I hit
He
the ground,
bursts
I
just
hit
Does
the
say
ground
that
hard.
the sides of my Taxxon body burst open from the impact. That is
that's
true.
so
So this is
and
what
he morphs back to Andalite as they try to eat him.
I need to ask about this because we kind of went over this with the harpoon. Was that the last book we read?
Yeah, the javelin
The
fish.
javelin
Right.
fish.
So when you burst and then you're morphing, how does this work with the burst part of you?
Oh, does it slurp back
Yes. What do we think?
My
up?
thought-
Man.
My only thought would be if it's constructed from DNA, when you tuck it back away, it reforms in Z space.
Okay.
It's a good question. So we have Burp the Croc, which is I think where Miranda's going, because you get your body back out of Z space. You get your mass back
Right.
out of Z space. So something bad happens to mass out here, but then you sort of just rotate the broken mass back in. And there's an episode of Star Trek where it's actually a pretty famous episode for our family because it's the episode where an aggressive immune system comes from.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, they cure someone. This is so game breaking. I can't believe they did it. But they were like, oh, well, she had to take the teleporter over there. Maybe her teleportation data is still in the memory buffer. We'll just have her morph back, but instead of letting her morph back in her current state, we'll like swap in that data or something like that. So it seems like something like that.
I
It's like
agree.
by virtue of storing it in Z space again, it gets reordered.
And it being DNA based. I think with those two
Yeah.
things, it like grows back.
Yeah, but it is confusing and it isn't fun to think about because it's not science.
No.
It's science fiction.
Yes. Okay.
So the pain was unbearable. I was delirious, unable even to think, to focus,
Are
to
you
keep
talking
track
about the
of what
book
was
or
happening.
are you just talking in general?
Yeah, no, I just have cramps. But no, but so yes, Elfangor is being eaten. It's really awful, but he's trying to morph back. and he manages to do it.
He does.
He does. He morphs back just enough to get a pointy
He's
butt.
being eaten, and I think at some point he's also being fired at, right, while this is happening. And he's actually, like, writhing around in this mass of
Once he morphs
Taxxons.
back, they see from the maglev train that he has not died. And they begin firing at him.
Which leads to one of my favorite lines, which is like, oh, is it in here or is it up ahead? It's something like, it's just like, we may hurt the Taxxons if we shoot at them. And he's like, I don't care.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But the Taxxons may be hit. I really don't care.
We also get
It's so good.
a Taxxon feeding frenzy described as their sluggish, sloppy bodies pressed in all around.
Yeah.
Me. It's great.
Me too.
It is. It
But
sounds
so
beautiful.
he thinks back to morphs he knows. He's got 3. He's got Taxxon. He's got the
Jabala?
I should
Dabala?
Jabala,
Gabala?
Jabala?
Jabala. The Jabala, and then he's got the Kafit bird.
And he's like, they haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah. He's like, a bird. I could fly away from these Taxxons.
Fly like a bird.
And so he says, I go to morph. And then he says, had I finished morphing? No time to worry. I would either fly or die.
Or die. Which later became his campaign.
How many pairs of wings does a Kafit bird have?
6.
6.
6 pairs of wings.
We love numerical descriptions in these books.
We do.
Yeah, they hit this again in part
Yeah.
2. They like re-describe so many of the things that we hit.
It's like they weren't really sure that they were going to be published all as one
I think
book.
they were told they were separate books for sure.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of rehashing in the first 3
Yes.
chapters of part 2.
Yeah.
It's like,
A lot of explaining like I'm 5.
Yeah. But so they keep firing, and as the Kafit bird, he manages to fly away, and he's gonna look for Alaran and Arbron. He's gonna look for the time matrix. He has to get there, and then he sees the most beautiful thing he can think of: Aloran's wife. Now,
Yeah, you're so right.
The Jahar!
but then he remembers that that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because they had left the 2 humans on there alone, and he had given Lauren a gun. Well, a Drakenbeam. Or what do they call him? A shredder?
A gun. No. A shredder. Good memory, yeah.
What is with this with the Jahar? Why does Elfangor love the Jahar so much, and why is that so important to the book that they keep hitting it?
Because he and Alaran have similar taste in women.
But also boys.
I do think Chris has a point that, like, it is stereotyped for boys to like cars and vehicles and things like that. And even just with, I think there's also something going on with it being named after Aloran's wife. I do think that they're trying to say that somehow he relates Lauren and the Jahar. And, like, they're sort of
Very weird.
existing
It is
in
very
a...
weird. It's
The feminine presence.
weird.
People
the feminine
wanna fuck
presence was
cars.
landing. Like, that's...
This book is so
Okay.
wild. I want to know about it. I want to know about Andalite women.
yeah.
I want to.
Well,
I
it's
want to
just
know
like
about them.
Mass Effect, where in the first Mass Effect, Miranda, maybe you remember if this is why it happened, but they only made male models of all of the alien races. And they were like, because it would have been too much, I think, for the first game to also make a female model. They're like, well, that would be a completely different model.
Well, but then they also made the Asari, who are
so
exclusively
they're only
female.
yes, yeah.
You can date a space racist or a nerdy researcher who, while technically being 100, really seems like she's like
16.
22, but very sheltered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Well-
technically an adult, but like she skipped a lot of grades.
That's disturbing. Well, speaking of space racists, here comes Principal Chapman and the fucking my wife. 'Cause he's landing the wife. He's landing the Jahar.
He has a bound Lauren.
Yeah. He has a bounty. Freaking tied her up.
He put her in a Leia bikini. We don't know where he got it.
Terry Gross would have a field day with this. She would be like, okay, I want to talk to you about Wonder Woman and about Superman and about the history of women in bondage in media. But the point is, we get a couple nice accents, which is while the ship is landing, everybody knows it's a big deal. So maglev trains are somehow redirecting themselves and somehow slamming into hapless Gedds who are on the tracks.
Yes.
Like, it makes no fucking
They
sense
should,
to
if
me.
he has this bound Lauren, there should be a scene where he's putting her on the train tracks and Elfangor has to save her. He has to fly in.
He's twirling his mustache.
Yes. Okay, so we get to the slow ramp lowering of the Jahar.
That's true.
And we get Lauren being shuffled out, and Chapman's got the Draken beam or the Shredder or whatever, and is pointed right at
pushes her
Lauren.
down.
Yes,
She's all
she
tied
slides
up.
down the ramp, I think. Like, yeah.
I think her shirt probably pops open
She's
a
like,
little bit. No, I'm kidding. For some reason, her jeans are ripped. Like,
Hey, relax. You can put down the weapons. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to trade. Chapman, nobody screams because nobody knows who this fucker is.
but Elfangor thinks it to himself.
Yeah.
And then all the other Subvisor, like Subvisor 7, strutted to meet the alien. He laughs cynically. It wants to trade? This strange creature wants to trade? So what do you have to trade, alien?
Yeah, it has like big, like, how you get taught about the first Thanksgiving vibes here, where they're like signaling.
Let's eat, children.
Wow. Wow.
Chapman's wearing a pilgrim hat with a buckle.
I thought you were going to say, like, Tarzan meet Jane or something, but, like, that also works.
Crucially in that one, Tarzan is saving Jane.
From colonialism.
That's right.
The point is, it's, oh my God, is it a reverse
Yeah,
Pocahontas?
sort of, yeah.
Point is,
Anyway.
they pick up that they want to trade, and we get this big cliffhanger drop. We get... Chapman kept his hand raised and made a human smile. Then very slowly, he stepped back into the shadowed interior of the ship, and when he reappeared, he was shoving someone before him. It was Loren. She was bound by wire. Chapman pushed her viciously. She fell to the ground before Subvisor 7. That's what I have to trade, Chapman said. A whole planet full of... that.
He's calling Lauren that.
Also, I don't know how I read this 3 times and missed that he doesn't bring her out with him immediately.
Yeah, I just caught that too.
I know, yeah. Well, because you imagine him putting her in front of him so he doesn't get shot.
Right.
Like, but apparently he's not that smart, and he, like, in the actual version of this book, he just walks out and some Gedd just shoots.
Well, to be fair, we've been reading this book. We don't have
Get
to include
shot.
this.
No, 360 no scope Gedd
We've been
shot.
reading this book since August, and this section in particular. And I think the image of Lauren bound and him just tossing her to the ground is so loud that when you reread it, you're just anticipating that. Over
Yeah,
and over.
that's true. That's
It's
true.
But my friends, my dorks, my cool guys, we have made it
To the end of part
to
1.
the end of part 1.
Oh my god.
We did it.
There's
What
a
a
lot in this
fucking-
book.
Yes.
There's a lot in this book, and we are like, just, it is every time I reread it, just, oh my God, there's so much to talk
I
about.
think,
So,
having read part 2, I actually think part 1 is weirdly paced. And I think part 2, I am also famous for saying this now in this podcast, but I feel like part 2 is going to
you
move.
are. I'm like, why are you doing this again?
Well, I'm saying it to
I
you
would-
too. I think part 2 really moves though.
I would somewhat agree. And when we were talking earlier about it feeling like they thought they'd be different books, I definitely feel like that's true, but I feel like they trimmed a lot of the fat at the beginning of part 2 if they thought it was going to be 2 books. Because,
it seems very
it
breezy. in
picks up
comparison.
very quickly.
Yeah.
There's no fun getting you into it anecdote. It's just like go, go, go the whole time.
Kind listeners, if you could bet money with each other on how many episodes this one book is gonna take us, if they guess the number on the head and they tweet it what do we give them if they're exactly right?
A signed copy of book 1. We'll sign it and give it to them.
Yeah.
All right, that's cute. Let's do that. All right. Awesome. So you heard it here first. Well, you heard it here second, actually. And then join our Patreon.
Yes, please.
AnimorphsPodcast.com. They've just featured us.
Great website.
Recently.
What?
We are the 36th show listed
No
on
way.
Animorphs
Whoa,
Podcast.
that's
That
a lot,
means
but that's great.
That's a lucky number.
there are 35 other shows listed on there. So,
And that's only the ones we know about. There are Animorph podcasts that I'm sure we're going to be discovering in 30 years.
If you go to that site and you don't see one that you know, they want to know about it so that they can have them all listed. And it's really awesome that they do that and that they provide that little resource for people who are looking for Animorphs content, because it's kind of niche. And so it's really cool that it's all together, and we're very honored to be a part of it.
yeah. And
and with your help, it'll get less.
my suspicion is that we are the last Animorphs podcast, but
I don't think that's true.
That's so sad.
I don't think that's true.
That's so sad. Do you know what that means?
what does it mean?
It means we're all alone.
No, we've got 35 other
Yeah.
friends.
In elementary school, when you would get that directory of the numbers and addresses of all the other kids at school, that seems like a bad idea in retrospect.
Yeah,
but,
looking back, it seems like a big violation.
But that's what AnimorphsPodcast.com is for us. It's a directory of 35 other friends with their home addresses and contact information.
Thanks for listening to Anidorks. We'll be back soon with lots more to say. Until the Andalites return, or at least until next time. See you soon!